Good morning or afternoon, or the case may be for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Jim Hill. I'm from User Friendly Consulting. I'm going to be leading today's presentation. I'd like to introduce the other speaker, who will be Travis Spangler. But first, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. I want to note that behind the scenes, we have Britta from ABBYY. She's a marketing manager. She's going to be our facilitator today. She will be handling the question and answer period. Also note, today's event will be recorded. And in a couple days after today, we will send you an email containing a link to download that. What's going to happen is we would love for you to submit questions throughout today's talk using the chat function on your GoToMeeting control panel. And then at the end, we'll have a question and answer period, and just encourage you to jot those down or submit them as they come up in your mind throughout today. You don't have to wait to the end to do that. Let me tell you a bit about how we're going to structure things today. We're going to start with some introductions about us. We are User Friendly Consulting, an ABBYY partner. Also ABBYY, the manufacturer of the software that is hosting this with us today. Then we're going to see a demo of the product that'll be led by Travis. Finally, we're going to have our question and answer period that I mentioned at the end. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was formerly a body structures engineer at Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. I understand the manufacturing environment very well, having worked in that field for quite a few years, including time as a machinist while I was going to college. I'm very well versed in document capture. I have about 20 years of experience in that field. I'm trained on the product we're going to be looking at today, which is ABBYY FlexiCapture and several other competitive products. I have some background in statistical process control, design of experiments, and production validation. Did quite a bit of DOE work at Ford during my time there. Next, I'd like to introduce Travis Spangler. Travis, if you could just say a quick hello.
Hello, everybody. Look forward to chatting with you today and showing you the demo.
Travis has about 10 years experience in document capture. He's also certified in the ABBYY FlexiCapture product and some other products, including Iris Extract and some other competitive ones as well. Unique thing about Travis, he brings development experience. He's a VB.NET developer, also web development and many other platforms. Previously, Travis was director of IT support for a company you may have heard of, Navistar, who makes trucks, buses, and engines. I want to start with a story of something that happened to me recently. I recently met someone at a cultural gathering, and they asked me, Jim, what do you do for a living? And I was telling them about ABBYY FlexiCapture and how our product reads handwritten values and check marks and text off of documents, extracts their information and puts it into a database where we would tell it. And you know, he looked at me with a surprised look on his face and he said, we've been spending thousands of hours of doing this type of stuff manually. And his next reaction was he explained, you know, a document that they've been filling in data, and it looked something like this document that I show on the screen here. And then he just right away said, when can you send me a quote? So this is from a senior quality engineer with 40 years in manufacturing, and actually he was working in a large biomedical company here in the area. So here we have the problem is, you know, we have a quality engineer investing, you know, this type of dedication to key in all these handwritten values, and he'd never actually heard of the software before. And it's kind of a problem that we run into, that we've seen several times, where companies, there's a separation that kind of happens between the front office and back office. Back office production people are consumed with support. And manufacturing makes the product, but it costs money, while, you know, the front office salespeople, they just make the money. So we recognize sometimes there can be some tension between those two, and sometimes not an easy way for production personnel, quality control personnel to find out about the software. And so, you know, they were keying in these handwritten values you see on the upper right-hand side of the screen. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is how we can apply this technology to the quality control realm. And we're going to be looking at 3 different areas. And Here's these objectives that we're going to go through really quickly. We're going to show how automating data capture can lead to higher productivity, increased accuracy, greater relevancy of crucial business data by focusing on these three areas. I like to call them realms. These realms we're looking at. Quality control, that's the case I just mentioned. How to digitize handwritten QC values while drastically reducing manual processing. We're going to look at health, safety, and regulatory compliance, how we can parse high volumes of documents to help locate critical business information and ensure compliance with those documents. Travis is going to be demonstrating that today. Testing and validation. Another area in my work with companies is we've seen lots of test reports come in, almost all of them from outside companies, many times come in an envelope and gets filed away somewhere. We're going to show you how to digitize that data to automatically extract key index values off the documents, and why that is a good thing to do, and how that creates better searchability of the document in the future, especially when used in conjunction with a product lifecycle management tool. I'm going to back up a little bit, tell you a little bit about user-friendly consulting. We were formed way back in 1990. We have been in this document capture space for many years. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition, some of the software we're looking at. OCR means turning a typed document into editable text, and forms processing along the same lines of extracting information from forms and possibly creating electronic versions of those forms. We worked in a variety of different industries. We have a wide range of experience with ERP and many enterprise software solutions. Pretty much every company we work with has some form of ERP system. Many times it's an in-house system, and many times it will be one of the commercial off-the-shelf softwares like SAP or JobBoss. Our business office is here in beautiful northern Indiana. Company was originally founded in Michigan. We're a two-time ABBYY Partner Award winner. We're very happy to have received those awards, and we look forward to our continued partnership with ABBYY, who's been with us every step along the way. These are just a few of our customers. There's some manufacturing customers listed there. We have quite a bit of experience in that area. And I just want to tell you a little bit about ABBYY, who they are. So I have this slide up here, ABBYY in 30 seconds. Hopefully this won't take more than 30 seconds to read this. ABBYY serves thousands of businesses worldwide. They also set the global standard for document recognition, content capture, and language-based technologies and solutions and across the information lifecycle. And I'm just going to pause for 1 second and say, even though ABBYY offers many different products, the product that we're focusing upon today is a data extraction document capture product. ABBYY also offers products for semantic search and big data compliance, along with many other OCR application technologies and frameworks, API systems that they also sell. The third bullet point there, ABBYY's innovative intelligent capture technology products, services, and solutions are delivered in multiple platforms. So what we see is different ways of utilizing the data, be it on a handheld device or desktop server or an SDK if you have a large IT department that likes to develop their own applications, as some companies do. ABBYY has a lot of experience in the automotive and manufacturing industries. I list a few here, Volkswagen on the upper left, and I'd like to list a lot more of these names, but what we find and what we think is happening when I approach a company for a case study, they would love to give us a case study. They just don't always want their name used, and we feel that probably that could be because there's a competitive advantage that they are offered through the ABBYY software, and don't necessarily want to give that away to other companies. So we can certainly understand that. So a lot of times we do these generic case studies. And on our website, ufcinc.com, are many case studies and testimonials from customers. And if you would like a reference from any certain customer, that could be something that we can arrange with you. I'm going to tell just a little bit about the value proposition Of course, you're going to invest money. You expect a return on investment for your money. And ABBYY is a leader in really recognizing large savings for customers. Every year, businesses and government authorities process more than 9.3 billion pages with the help of ABBYY. Paper is not going away anytime soon. We know that. Annually, ABBYY saves people 970 million man-hours, or $4.8 billion. There's some estimates that ABBYY has put together as of last year. I had mentioned that the ABBYY product we're looking at is FlexiCapture. Just noted that down at the bottom of the screen, and you'll get used to hearing that, and we really look forward to showing you that live demo pretty soon. And another reminder, just remember, if you have questions, please submit them in that chat window. We'd love to see those questions arise as we continue our talk. Some of the challenges that companies are facing: I understand the pressures of production, doing more with less, people being laid off, not having a budget to replace them. So one of the things that we look at are things like the volume of paper. A recent survey shows that 50% of invoice docs are still sent in paper. Why is that? It could be things like the postmark rule, where documents are legal tender and the date of the postmark is the shipment date, and that's a legal entity. Other reasons, many and various. That's just the way companies have always done things. So we see lots of paper invoices being sent. Many businesses still rely on information from paper or fax. Chances are paper is an easy method of doing things and probably will not go away anytime soon. It creates lots of challenges with this paper. Manual entry of data from paper is costly and inefficient. Keying in data, even typed data. If you still have to key in index values to store a document in your SharePoint or your content management system, whether you have your product lifecycle management tool, you still would have to key those in, so otherwise you can't find them later on. Documents are not easily searchable and hard to locate. That's a key point, because if I just take a picture of a document and store that document by, say, the title of the document, the only information I have that's searchable is the title of the document. If I OCR the document, create index values, at that point I might be able to locate keywords within the document. And that's one of the things that the software does. Paper takes up space. If the paper is sensitive paper, HIPAA compliant, personal health information, it has to be locked or has to be archived according to your product lifecycle management methodology, and then possibly destroyed. With electronic storage, we can push a button, archive, and then destroy records, but they still have to be put in the system in electronic format somewhere. Documents can help you, document capture can help, and that's what we're going to be showing you today. I will make this, there's a survey here I just mentioned on the screen. Respondents to our survey regarding data capture and organization said things, and like I said, I'll make this available to you in a link that we will send by email a couple days after today's webinar. It's a must to survive. We have just noticed and started. Our company is falling behind due to lack of aggressive strategy in this area. So these are kind of common things we see. We see customers say things like, I don't know how I could have operated without this software. How did we ever get along? Glad that we have found it. There's a link on the screen, and like I said, we will be emailing that if you want to write that down, tiny.cc/B9ESMY, and if I went too fast, you could ask that question on the chat window, and we will be sure to send you that link and also by email. Okay, we're going to talk about FlexiCapture. Ways we can do several things, improve efficiency. We take personnel away from keying in data. That's a boring and time-consuming process, a necessary process, but if we can do it electronically, that's something we should think about doing. Free up room for paper. We don't have to store it. We don't have room. We don't have to worry about HIPAA compliance for documents because they're stored electronically according to the procedures that the HIPAA advisor in your company takes for securing those electronic documents. Reduce risk for legal discovery. If the documents are not searchable, you're subject to a legal discovery process. You're going to be digging through possibly file cabinets and file cabinets full of documents to try to find certain key values off those documents. I was recently talking to somebody who was applying for a job position. Their job would be solely to search for these documents. But it wasn't just any type of document. These were very complicated legal documents. The person had to have a legal background to search the documents. And that's one of those realms that we're going to be looking at in that that second realm, that health, safety, and regulatory compliance, why ABBYY software could really help you in that area. Provide people with better access to information. Since the documents are now electronically archived, they can just be quickly retrieved from your content management system. Reduce expenses. Also, we can look at just looking at the amount of labor that we save is frequently one of the ways we justify the cost of a FlexiCapture system. How much data is a person spending keying in? Or how much time are they spending keying in data? And also there's a reduction in error rate we can look at for that too. We can also reduce shipping expenses, many other cost reductions. I just listed 2 of those on here, but reduce shipping and storage costs because digital storage is essentially free. I'm going to educate you a little bit today. I think you're going to really like Travis's live demonstration here coming up in just a couple of minutes. But I'm going to educate you a little bit about the ABBYY FlexiCapture software, and then we're going to show you how that can work, focusing on those 3 realms I just mentioned: quality control, health, safety, regulatory, testing, and validation. And there's going to be a lot of other areas you can think of that this could apply. We're just kind of covering these 3 areas. Your product lifecycle tool may have ways of capturing data you haven't considered, or possibly your ERP system, or even invoice processing could be ways that we're not going to mention today, but ways that we could consider. Okay, these are the 3 areas again: the quality control, health, safety, regulatory, testing, and validation. I am not going to go into too much depth on this, but I do just want to introduce this diagram here. And you guys are used to a lot of diagrams in the manufacturing process. This is a diagram that shows how the FlexiCapture software splits documents apart through what's called the classification method. It's figuring out what's a document, what's an invoice, what's a questionnaire, what's a contract. This is one system for the company, processes any type of document. So it's a single entry port for paper and image. I say for image, it could be documents received electronically from a scanner. It could be documents we're scanning, that's the paper side. It could be documents we're receiving by email. It could be documents that we are receiving through a web service call to your ERP system. Centralized capture of documents through an intranet page. Automatic classification, we figure out which document is which and what to extract upon each different document. We extract the data, we convert the documents to searchable format. And then we route the documents somewhere. We route a scanned or electronic version of that document for storage, and we extract the data from the document and we route that document data somewhere, possibly a database, ERP system, product lifecycle management tool, something like that. Could be EDI data as well. That's something that we have done extensive work with over the years. There's some different types of documents you see on the screen. Things like surveys. Many surveys have lots of handwritten values. Many companies use check marks as an easy way to find the answers to these things. Semi-structured documents are things like invoices, purchase orders. And then we have unstructured documents, something which ABBYY FlexiCapture is uniquely able to handle. An unstructured document is a document where we don't really know what's going to appear on that particular document. An example is a letter. The information moves around. In this case, we have a date, we have an addressee, we have a sender, and then we have the message body. We could extract information from within this using certain rules that we develop in the FlexiCapture software. There's different phases I speak about. Capture, I'm going to move by quickly on this, but I just want to mention that we can import documents. We can capture documents by scanning. We can watch a folder, say a multifunction peripheral device every company has, walk up, drop and stack the documents in, have those documents automatically sent to FlexiCapture. Document separation is the ways in which we break documents apart. You don't just have to scan one document at a time. We're assuming in many cases we'll have multiple documents, even documents of different types that will be cataloged, archived in the system. And we do common things like enhancing the documents, taking off bumps and pages that are rotated or skewed a little bit, straighten up the pages, common stuff that any one of these document capture products has to do. Classify, that's where the system automatically determines the type of document and also what type of information to be extracted. This is something that we actually set up. The system, we configured the system through a configuration called training. We actually train the system what documents to expect and what information to extract off of the documents. A verification phase is going to be next. I'm going to first mention the data extraction. We can extract pretty much any type of data off of the document. Things like barcodes are very common. Text, check marks, things like handwritten values. We have table extraction where we can look for a tabular formatted document, and that's something that works very well. We validate the data. We know that if the area that the data is being entered is, say, an address field, we're going to tell the system that that's an address. It would not expect a state value to be entered in the address field. It would look for something like 100 Main Street. We can do things like database lookups against those different fields as well to what I call smarten up the data extraction for that particular field. A verification phase I mentioned a second ago is where we have another chance of verifying a document. The system thinks what it has extracted here, in this case first name Robert, and the system read it correctly as Robert. You would have the chance to correct the data before it is sent to your back office system. That's an optional step for some documents. We just run this automatically, get as close as we can. A small amount of missing characters would be insignificant, but maybe something like an employee number would be super critical. We could require 100% verification just for the employee number or date, the hire date, the date of service. Maybe those two fields would be key, possibly last name, and the rest of it we would just automatically extract. That would be an optional step that you can configure. Fields with uncertainly recognized characters. That's what we're looking at on here. And we can have multiple operators assigned. So if the data is super critical, we can have more than one operator verify the data. We can have this done across your company through the intranet or even overseas, however you would like to purpose your personnel. You can do database lookups for each of these different values. That's a zoomed in view of that where I mentioned we extracted the first name, Robert. Final phase is export. Got to put the data somewhere. The reason we're extracting it is really for the export purposes, to put it into a content management system, most commonly like SharePoint or FileNet, something like that. We export, in many cases, the images of PDF-A. The PDF archive format is kind of an emerging standard for storing documents, so that 20 years later down the road you can retrieve those documents using the Adobe Reader or other PDF reader files. Export the data to files and databases. And FlexiCapture comes with an out-of-the-box connection to SharePoint server. We can export to other platforms very easily, as long as there's an API. We have done many of those and have lots of proficiency, especially in the IBM FileNet line of products, which we also market. We can simultaneously export both images and data to multiple destinations, not just one place. Okay, we're going to look, I'm just going to talk through before we turn it over to Travis, some of the things that we can do in these three realms. The first realm is the quality control realm, extracting handwritten values from quality control data, and we have done that for lots of companies over the years. And what we can do is flag values that are out of spec. We can do things like help companies redesign their data sheets for optimal extraction. because many times these data sampling sheets were just maybe drawn up in Excel and printed out, and they're not really optimized for electronic extraction. Export extracted data through a system designed to flag out-of-spec values. Something could be, say, we're looking for a CPK value of less than 1.67. We're looking for defects per opportunity, DPO, of greater than 3.4, whatever would be your Six Sigma requirements for your particular company. And I note that scan incoming material inspection reports for critical values, not just CPK, but could be anything. Provide better traceability by scanning every single document in your quality control department. I mentioned that originally when I opened today with that gentleman who I spoke to that was not doing that, and they were placing things into a stack, which then had to be entered. We recently saw a client who gave us a picture. I did not have permission to share that picture, or I would have, with a stack of documents on his desk had to be keyed in, and it was maybe 3 stacks or 4 stacks, and some of them were 1 to 2 feet tall. So he's looking at FlexiCapture to get rid of some of that. Health, safety, regulatory is that next round. So we're talking the legal kind of front office folks. We are working on a project right now, and we're doing something very much like this. So we're processing contractual type documents, searching for key values, and then extracting all the information below that value. So we might be looking for a federal regulation number or some sort of contract clause, and then we grab the information below that. What we could also do is process every single incoming legal document coming into a company. We could search for fields like case number, litigation response, attorney name. And what that would do, that bottom bullet point, and sorry that all those jumped on the screen at the same time, but what it would do is provide greatly improved response to legal discovery requests, because you could just sit down at your computer and do the search. Now, we're not naive enough to think that anybody is going to be able to sit down and do that search, but what we do understand is that if you have enough index values created, that somebody that knows the significance of each of those index values could then conduct the search and locate the documents. If they're sitting in a file cabinet somewhere, that really would not be the case. And another thing, we mentioned is that companies they're dealing with big data. They're dealing with an increased high volume of data. So as we see more and more devices transmitting data, these embedded devices, be it thermostats, whatever, around the shop floor, there's just more and more data, and it's just an overwhelming amount of data being processed. Some of the things that we can help with. Finishing up that second round, this legal discovery round, was we want to talk about ensuring full compliance in case of a legal discovery request, because if you receive such a request, it might be a matter of just sitting down and querying your database. If documents are not there, you cannot find them. If the document is searchable, we can use another ABBYY software called Recognition Server. We can create a full text searchable version of that in a similar way as we do with FlexiCapture, but maybe not necessarily looking for individual index values, maybe just the full text of the document. That final phase before we turn it over to Travis is testing and validation. I used to do quite a bit of work with testing at Ford. We did a lot of outsourced testing. We did some in-source. When these documents would come in from the outside companies, they would usually send a big thick envelope, and we would have a test report. And what we could do with the ABBYY software is scan and extract key values from the documents, and then we can archive them into a content management system, maybe using a batch cover sheet system, something that we would help you with. I want to just mention before we turn over to Travis, a few years ago I did some consulting with a local manufacturing company in Southwest Michigan. Was trying to win some new business with a large company up in Auburn Hills in the automotive space, and I was able to go on site and consult with them, mostly dealing with ISO 9000 and compliance to their quality QMS, quality management system. And I walked up to the business, and this is no lie, the business actually had a big hole in the concrete wall right next to their sign of the business. So first thing I recommended was, you might want to just move that sign over 2 feet and cover up that big hole that you have in the wall. It's one of the things that they did. And they were doing some other common sense things that I was able to correct. You know, one thing, they had an ERP system, they had a homegrown ERP system, but they weren't filing very much in there. So they weren't filing invoices, they weren't filing test reports. A manufacturing company that was outside hardness test reports would send that in. And lots of file cabinets, lots of flammable materials in the building. And I'm just mentioning that these file cabinets were something that if anything went wrong, they could burn up. They would not be something that you could easily replace should something like that happen. So I worked with them, and they are now implementing going through that plan to go ahead and implement a more robust system. We're looking at Job Boss, an ERP system, which is going to help them with a lot of this stuff. And we're just excited that they see the value in cataloging, archiving data. And the reason I bring that story up is it's something that we like to do with each and every client we work with. We just look at the big ideas. First things first, we do a triage. We work on the most important things and start there. So if you already have a content management system, you already have a product lifecycle ERP system, what are the areas that you're missing? Perhaps you're not doing invoice processing. Perhaps there are test reports coming in. Perhaps you could use a e-discovery or legal discovery system that would help you. So we are there to help you and partner with you. The next thing I would like to just mention is we work with a company here in the Warsaw area called Wildman Group. Maybe some of you have heard of that. They produce the Sportula line of products. They recently implemented ABBYY FlexiCapture. For invoice processing, something we're not going to be focusing too much upon today, but their CFO said that the difference is night and day between after they implemented FlexiCapture. And she said FlexiCapture for invoices is well on track to delivering the time-saving and workflow efficiencies that were expected by Wildman Business Group. Wildman is one of the companies that we've worked with. It would be possible to reach out for a reference should that be needed. And we're very pleased to have partnered with them in this product. And with that, I'm going to be turning the stage over to Travis Spangler. He's going to show you a live demo of FlexiCapture, focusing upon those 3 realms that we had mentioned. And again, please remember to submit questions that you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Well, I'm excited to show you our software today. I think there's going to be a lot of useful business reasons on why we can see that implementing such software is needed in our businesses. And what we have on the screen here is the software for you. And what you see are 5 different types of documents that we've processed. Now, what I've done is I did it manually. I loaded these manually into the software. But if you recall from Jim's presentation, there are multiple ways to get documents in, and I'll repeat those real quick for you. You can scan documents directly into the software. You can let the software monitor an email box, which is very, very common these days. The software can also monitor a folder or a network share and grab documents automatically. So there are a few ways to get documents into the software. Now, once the documents are into the software does the process that we call recognition. And recognition is the step where the software determines what kind of document this is and then what to extract on the document. And so that's how we've determined that some of these documents are named as such. These are quality control plans. You can see a contract here, and you can see a technical report here as well. So that's what you see here are 5 different documents. Also, what you see is a term called confidence level. And confidence level is the software grading itself on how confident, if you would, that it extracted proper results or accurate results for you. And when it thinks that it questions a result, it will downgrade its confidence so that we as humans have the ability to focus on just those characters, and therefore making the process that we call verification much quicker and much easier on our eyes. So that's kind of what you see here are 5 different documents. Now I'm going to dive into the first document. On the left, you'll see what the software extracted on fields that we told it to grab. And on the right, you're going to see a copy of the document, the actual document. This is a quality control plan. I'm sure you've seen documents like this in your business. You probably deal with documents like this on a daily basis. And what we've done is we've just told the software to grab these fields that you can see, and then what we will do is verify them. And if you recall that term that I said, confidence, Here are two characters in red, and if you can't see that, there are this 1 and this 7 here in the date are in red. And that's the software downgrading its confidence. It's asking us as human beings to make sure that it's correct, and then if for some reason we need to overwrite that, we can simply just delete it and overwrite that if we want it. So that's an example of what that confidence term up there means for us on an actual document. So you can see we're extracting any kind of information, whether it's handwritten or actual typed text. You can see we can extract, if I click on our check boxes here, we can determine in this case what shift is reported on the document. And then also in this case, we can extract table data. So if we want to analyze this data, or we want to do math or calculations or some analysis, statistical analysis on this data, we can extract this and then use that data in a downstream system, maybe something like an enterprise system or even something as basic as Excel to do some analysis on that. So, and of course, when we have a table, we can extract, like you see here, not just numbers and text, but also check marks, and you can see the software here grab those check marks. Some other fields that we can capture are like what we call images. We can detect if a document is signed, which can be a very big deal in the legal world. And then, of course, we have barcodes, which is very, very common as well on documents. And typically those barcodes tell us some intelligent details about either the document or the version of the document that we will use downstream in some of our systems. So that's an example of a quality control plan. I'm just going to take a peek at some of these other documents with you. And you can kind of see here, and once again, anything in red, if you can see the red, is where the software is just questioning its confidence. Now, ways that we can tweak confidence or allow the software to have higher confidence is by narrowing down the type of data that we expect in the field. So, for example, a date field. For example, we want to tell the software that that is a date. We don't want it to expect any other characters except date details in that field. And what that does is it brings this huge dictionary that we have behind the scenes, and it just makes that smaller and smaller, and therefore it doesn't have to sift through so many pages, if you would, like a real dictionary, to find the accurate results here for each of those characters. So there are several different techniques that we can use with your business on your documents to get the very best results we can. And this is just an example of another handwritten quality control plan. The next quality control plan is typed. My point of showing you this is, once again, it doesn't matter if a document is handwritten or typed. We're going to extract data here and present it to you in a nice, clean fashion that you can use. So that's a very typical expectation from or a business use case that we get. Another business use case that we get is extracting details from what we call unstructured forms, which, if you look at anything like a contract, contracts can vary so greatly between parties that, you know, there is no structure. There's no rules that we can typically use from a location standpoint on these fields. So in this case, we're extracting a clause. Maybe in legal terms, this would be an indemnity clause. But nonetheless, this is just an example of details we can extract. And in this case, we're telling the software some textual rules versus locational rules on how to find that clause. And we can, of course, extract that clause and do all kinds of fancy things downstream with it. Lastly, we have a technical report here, and much like the first one, we're just telling the software where this data is found, and, you know, we can correct it, maneuver it, adjust it as needed, and we can even perform calculations behind the scenes that the user in this screen isn't necessarily seeing. So once we perform what we call verification, which is just double checking these results, we can export these documents. And I'm not going to show you an export because our export options are so vast. We can export to basic systems like Excel. We can export to any kind of database that you're using, or any kind of common databases like your SQLs, your Oracles. Or if you're using some sort of company-wide system, an ERP system, it's very common that we would integrate with those, or even an EDI system if we're transferring data. So our export options are vast, and we can definitely handle any system that you're looking to export to. I want to show you just very quickly behind the scenes before I open it up for questions. I want you to see how easy it is on a common document to extract details. So what I have here is our document definitions. This is a fancy term for the word template. We're just going to look at a template and see how we tell the software behind the scenes on the details we want to grab. So I'm just going to pick one of our options here. And let's pick a field that we haven't grabbed. So this is, like I said, this is an administrative piece of the software, but if we, for some reason, wanted to grab this sponsoring agency code, all we need to do is select the type of data, lasso the data, And every piece of data, or every field as we call it, has properties. And I won't go through every single property with you, but these properties are what determines the accuracy of the field. So once again, remember when I said if it's a date field, we want to tell the software it's a date. This is where we would set those behind the scenes. And each of these just tweak that confidence level and also the accuracy, and also we can perform some business logic on these fields. So we can look up data in databases. We can perform, like I said, math earlier. I used that as an example. We can perform calculations. We can compare different fields, a lot of different settings here to make sure the software is running as efficiently as possible for you. Last thing I'll show you before I hand it back is I wanted to show you our export settings. If you recall, this is where I said we can export to Excel for a basic option. We can go to any database or any ERP system. But there are two things, if you recall from Jim's presentation, that we're going to need to export. We're going to export data to you, and that's the actual fields that we captured, and then we're going to export what we call the image, but really what that means is we're going to capture the document. So you have two things at your disposal here that you can use. You have both data and the document, and typically we would store that document in some sort of PDF format. There's also a PDF archivable format you may want to consider using, but we would do that so that not only do you have the data, but you have a copy of the document named intelligently or stored intelligently in a system. So that's a very quick behind-the-scenes view, but you see the options are vast, and the software can be very, very easily tailored to accommodate your different documents and different levels of confidence here, making sure that you have everything at your disposal. And you see there's a lot of options on these screens because ABBYY's been a wonderful software developer. They've been years in the business, and they most likely have seen any situation you bring to their table, and we're thankful to be a partner with them, and we're very confident in the software. So if you do have questions, let us know on the chat here, and we'll definitely confront those. But while you're doing that, I just want you to have some confidence that User-Friendly Consulting is a certified elite partner with ABBYY, which means every one of our staff is technically certified in the product, and anybody from support to engineer to even sales is certified in the product, and you're going to get the best service and sales experience that we can give you. So that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Britta and Jim, and if there's any questions, I'd be thrilled to handle those at this time.
Thank you, Travis. So the first question that's come up is you mentioned training the system to learn new documents. Does the system automatically learn to extract data from new documents, and how does it know which fields we want to extract?
Yeah, well, first off, that's a fantastic question. On documents like invoices or purchase orders, sometimes we call them sales orders, the software has an actual training feature that we can train the different locations of fields. Besides that, on just a traditional document, we train it based on location of the field, or we can even use keywords and different phrases on a document to provide the accurate training.
Great. And can we process a mixture of documents all at the same time? So for instance, we have documents that come in from an EDI channel along with other documents like invoices coming in by email and physical mail from our vendors. So can the system then organize these and extract data from these mixed document sources?
Absolutely. The software, oh, excuse me. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. The software uses the details that I showed you on the demo behind the scenes to figure out what kind of document that is. We call that classification. So the short answer is yes. And how the software does is a little bit more intense, but there's a lot of intelligence built into the software that allows it to automatically recognize a document, and then once it recognizes it, extract the fields or the data that we want off of it. Great question.
Okay, and there's a follow-up question to that around if there are multiple business units and many times more vendors, is the system then able to sort all the invoices from different business units and vendors?
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of that's why the software exists, is so that we can extract business units. In other words, on an invoice, who's going to be paying the check versus vendors. And what we do is we use the data in your business and your accounting systems, your ERP systems, to help us find the vendor, the business unit, and therefore we can show that accurately to you.
Okay. And then there's a question around ERP systems. Can FlexiCapture integrate with ERP systems through the API provided by the vendor, or do you have experience in doing that successfully with different ERP systems?
Yes, the answer is yes and yes. We have a lot of experience. It's very typical that we would get a customer that wants us to integrate with their system. And what an API is, if people haven't used that term, is it's a way that we can programmatically call another application. And if you have a system, like an ERP system or another business system that allows us to programmatically call it, we can absolutely do that. And that's done through a number of different ways, including web services, database calls, and a number of different options there. The answer is yes, and we do it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned workflows during the presentation. Can you describe what the workflow capabilities are within the software?
The workflow capabilities are once again vast, as are a lot of the options here. They're very customizable. So we can have, in the process, we can have what we call queues, and we can create a workflow that allows documents to enter that queue based on criteria and to exit that queue based on criteria. It is very, very flexible. It gives you the ability to do things like approvals and have other parties involved in the software as well, besides just doing OCR verification.
Great. And if we want to set up a new document type to be extracted, how long does that process take? And does it need to be done by a programmer level person, or can someone in a business unit handle that task?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have two different styles of forms that we process. One is what we call a fixed form, where the fields are located in the same place every single time. On those forms, that can be done by a business unit person, somebody that's pretty comfortable with software. That can take probably between 1 to 3 hours, just based on your comfort level and trying it. The semi-structured or unstructured documents do take a little bit more time. It does require some comfort with technology, and that's why we offer our professional services to accommodate that, or we can provide training on how that's done. But the semi-structured documents do require a little bit more comfort with technology and, like a computer science mind around it.
Okay. And then the last question is around whether you offer this technology in a software as a service model with licensing per month.
Yeah, so as of right now, we do not, and there's a number of reasons why, and that's mostly because of privacy. A lot of our customers are very concerned about private data in the cloud. But that being said, if you have a cloud offering today, you have a cloud host yourself. In other words, maybe you're using Amazon or Microsoft Azure. We can install the software on your server, your virtual server in the cloud, but we do not offer hosting. But if you're hosting it, you can absolutely host it yourself in the cloud. It's a very common thing that we do, and a lot of corporate clients are going that way.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Travis and Jim. That wraps up all the questions. And if there are any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Travis. You can see his contact information right there on the screen. And we will follow up with an email sending you the recording as well as the link to the document that had been referenced earlier in the presentation.
Thank you very much, Britta. Thank you very much, Travis. We just like to thank everyone for attending today, and we look forward to speaking with you. If you would do us the honor of visiting our website, you'll find it very well organized. We have a lot of very helpful videos, and it's not just necessarily for new customers of ABBYY FlexiCapture. We found a lot of existing customers have benefited from these various videos and white papers and case studies we have up there. So we ask you to do that. We do thank you for your time today. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I think that's it.